Did you click on go live or not yet? 29.
29. Okay. You ready? Okay. Yeah.
Go live.
Yeah.
So are we on?
Yes. Yeah.
Cool, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Councillor Drew Heffernan, and I'm Chair of the Planning Committee. Welcome to the virtual meeting today, which is the 5th of August 2020 at 7:30. The Vice Chair of this meeting is Councillor Kevin Burke, and if I lose my signal at any point tonight, he will take over the chairing. This meeting's being streamed live on YouTube, so welcome to everyone who's watching us on that. And this will be available following the meeting, as well as a recording on the council website in the coming days. Before we begin, I'm just going to mention a few things just so that we can make sure the meeting flows smoothly. First of all, that I'm going to allow members lots of time to speak during the meeting, and I'll make it very clear during the agenda when this can happen. So please only speak when I call on you, and please don't talk over another person, as it messes up the feed and people won't be able to follow what's happening. When you speak for the first time, could you please state your name and your position, so your title and your name. You don't need to do this every time, but for the first time it would be helpful for those watching it on YouTube. If you want to raise a point during the meeting, could you please use the chat function? So that's if you want to raise a point of order. If you do that, I'll come to you straight away, or let me know if you want to debate or raise a question on an item. As we begin, I'm going to ask the clerk to confirm which members are present and if we have any apologies for absence. As this is being done, can I ask members please to comment in the chat box if they wish to declare an interest, and also mention if you want to declare an interest as well. So Cathy, could you please confirm who's present?
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Amy Haldane, with Richard Clifton attending as a substitute. So I see we have Councillor Eric Allen, the Vice Chair, Councillor Kevin Burke, Councillor Richard Clare, Councillor Tim Foster, Councillor Richard Clifton, Councillor Vincent Gallagher. Apologies to Councillor Amy Haldane, Councillor Tony Shields, Councillor Jill Whitehead, and Councillor Drew Heffernan. And I understand that Councillor Peter Geringer is on his way and will.
Great, thank you. I'm still checking there's no declarations of interest from anyone. No, okay, right, thank you. We're now going to move on to the minutes of the previous meeting. They were circulated before. So members, can we approve the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 22nd of July? I'm going to allow members time to speak if they wish to express dissent. But if you're happy to accept them, could you please just note in the chat box that you're happy to accept? Cool, brilliant. Those are carried, thank you. I'll take the minutes as approved, and I'm going to sign those once social distancing measures are lifted. Okay, so we're now moving on to agenda item 5, which is the update on the Sheenway playing fields application. I'm going to ask that we move directly to the recommendations on this item, which can be found on page 3 of the reports pack. And the recommendations are asking us to confirm the reasons the committee as a collective gave on an item at the meeting on the 28th of May 2020. As these recommendations relate to a decision made that meeting, we'll do a roll call vote of the members present who did participate in this item on the 28th of May. So Cathy, would you please do the call of the roll of the people who were present on that meeting?
Thank you, Claire. The recommendations are to note the next steps which will be taken by the Council and the Planning Inspectorate, and 2.2, to agree that the grounds for refusal agreed by the Planning Committee the 9th of June 2020 do accurately reflect the reason for refusal as discussed and agreed by this committee at the meeting of 28th of May 2020. As I read your name, could you turn on your microphone and state if you're voting for, against or abstain of the recommendations? After you've spoken, please switch off your microphone and camera. I'll call the roll in alphabetical order. Councillor Eric Allen.
For in relation to both items.
Councillor Kevin Burke.
Agreed.
Councillor Richard Clare.
Sorry, just very quickly, could I just ask,
for the three of us that abstained on the initial votes, I'm happy to vote for this, but I don't want to be inconsistent.
Okay, we're voting on what the committee agreed on the meeting. Matthew, do you want to come in?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The decision that you're being asked to make is to confirm what the committee's collective decision was. So members' individual votes on that that application, or what wasn't an application, are not relevant. It's just asking the committee to confirm its decision as a whole. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I'm very grateful. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Matthew. I vote for.
Councillor Tim Foster.
I vote for.
Councillor Vincent Gallagher.
Vote for.
Councillor Tony Shields.
It's for.
Councillor Jill Whitehead.
For.
And Councillor Drew Heffernan.
For.
And Councillor Richard Clifton and Councillor Richard Garriger are not eligible to vote as they were not at the previous meeting.
That's great. Thanks, Kathy. Okay, thank you, everyone. That means that the recommendations have been agreed, and we can now move on to the next section, which is the new planning applications that we've got before us tonight. For each item, I'm going to ask officers to give a brief presentation on the application. Officers will display some slides on screen and we'll talk us through them. And then after that, I'll ask if members have any questions for officers. So can I ask that people wait until the end of the presentation before you give those questions? On both of these applications tonight, we've got no written statements or registered speakers, but normally that is where people would come in after that. And then we'll move to debate and then move to votes after that. Okay, thank you. So the first application we've got is item 7, which is item 6, which is Foresters Primary School. So could I ask the officer to present that application, please?
Hello, Chair. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yeah, can that be seen?
Yeah.
Hello, Chair. Okay. Hello, committee members. My name is Ben Rochford, Planning Officer. This is agenda item 6. This item relates to 2 classrooms at Foresters Primary School located on the eastern elevation of the building adjacent to the Redford Avenue and Hengistway Junction. The application site does not have any specific site designations. The surrounding area is typically residential in character and forms part of the Roundshaw estate. The blue outline on this plan shows the entire boundary of the school, and the red outline being the focus of the application relates to the 2 classrooms to be extended. This photo shows the school from the Redford Avenue Hengistway Junction looking to the west. This photo is similarly looking to the west at the 2 classrooms to be enlarged. This is taken from within the school grounds. This is taken from the front boundary, also looking west. These are the existing plans. And these are the proposed plans. So the proposed extension would be 6 metres in depth, roughly doubling the size of the rooms. The classrooms to be enlarged and improved as they currently fall below national standards in terms of size. The proposed extension would be of a similar design to the existing school building and suited within the context of the school, constructed using materials to match. The separation distance of the proposed extension to the nearest residential building would be approximately 30 metres, which is a significant separation and not unexpected within the existing setting. The council's highways officer has stated the proposal would not lead to any increase in pupil numbers or associated traffic generation as such, has raised no objection. Whilst there are a number of trees along the eastern boundary of the site, the council's tree officers have no objection, subject to a condition to ensure the trees are adequately protected during construction. The proposal represents a sustainable form of development, and the development will not give rise to any flooding or drainage matters, and will not have any significant impact on biodiversity, and we're looking to approve. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ben. Do any councillors have any technical questions for officers? Okay, I don't think we've got any coming up. So I think, Councillor Shields.
Thank you, Councillor. Chair, I think this is quite a straightforward application, and I wonder if, and I'm sure all officers and all councillors have had a good time to scrutinise and ask questions prior to this, and I wonder if it were the committee's view that you might, in an orderly fashion, move toward the vote.
Thank you, Councillor. I think we're in agreement on that one, given that nobody has raised any particular questions of the application. So, Cathy, can we move to the vote on this one, please, to the officer's recommendation?
Okay, we're voting on the recommendation to approve. And if I could ask you to turn on your mic and answer if you're voting for, against, or abstain. So, Councillor Eric Allen.
For the recommendation.
Councillor Kevin Burke.
For.
Councillor Richard Clare.
For.
Councillor Tim Foster.
For the recommendation.
Councillor Vincent Gallagher.
For the recommendation.
Councillor Peter Geringer.
For the recommendation.
Councillor Tony Shields.
For the recommendation, please.
Councillor Jill Whitehead.
For the recommendation.
Councillor Richard Clifton.
For the recommendation.
Councillor Drew Heffernan.
Oh, sorry, for.
That's 10 votes for, no votes against, and no abstentions.
Thank you, Cathy. So that means the vote's been carried and planning permission is granted for that application. So thank you, everyone, for your work on that one. I'm going to move to item 7, which is the Sutton Church's Tennis Club on Gander Green Lane. Can I ask the officer who's presenting on this to present their slides, please?
Good evening, Chair and committee members. Can you confirm that you can see the slides?
Yep.
Lovely. I'm Polly Davidson, Planning Officer. The application before us for consideration is an application to vary condition 4 of a previously approved planning application, which was for the erection of 11 6.7 metre high floodlight columns to courts 1 to 3 at Sutton Tennis Club. This application is to extend the permitted time of use until 9:30 in the evening, which is 30 minutes beyond the existing restriction of 9 p.m. This application relates to courts 1 to 3 only and does not involve any new or additional floodlighting at the site. This is the application site. It's Sutton Church's Tennis Club, which is located on the western side of Gander Green Lane. The club is accessed via a track situated between numbers 97 and 101 Gander Green Lane. The track also provides access to residential properties at Alexandra Lodge and 4 commercial properties. Existing residential development of Denby Close adjoins to the site to the north, and Tiller Close is located to the west. This slide here shows part of the application site that shows courts numbers 1 to 3, which is north and west of the clubhouse, which is located in the centre of the site. The other floodlit hard courts are located to the south of the site, and there is a non-floodlit court number 4, which is on the far west here. This slide shows the existing floodlights and their direction indicated by the green arrows and the thin red line, which shows the surface illuminance or lux levels of the existing floodlighting. The application does not propose any new floodlights or change to the brightness of these lights, only that they can be switched on for an additional 30 minutes in the darker months. The impact of this additional 30 minutes on neighbours' amenity has been assessed by Environmental Health, and they are satisfied that this would not result in unacceptable impact on the amenities of these surrounding properties. This slide here is a view from the garden to the side of the clubhouse over the clay courts, with Denby Close properties in the far distance. Here you can see views slightly to the west and the third court. And this is a view across the third court, which is floodlit, and the unfloodlit court number 4 with Tiller Close in the background, which was constructed after the tennis club was there. This is a view of the existing hard courts to the south with floodlighting, which can be used until 10 p.m. in the evening. This final slide shows a view from within Denby Close towards the cricket club. The additional floodlighting time is considered to support the health and well-being that will allow members of the club to use the 3 clay courts for slightly longer in the darker months, and does not impact on the openness or the surrounding area. There's no change to the design of the floodlights and no impact on highways or biodiversity. Thank you, Chair. That concludes my presentation, and the case before you is recommended for approval subject to conditions relating to the uses of the floodlights.
Thank you, Polly. I'm going to ask a few other questions. I've got Councillor Clifton first, if you want to ask your question.
Yes, could I just ask, reading these papers, there's reference to a study of a piece of research by Arlect Associates in relation to luminance, and that is a condition that luminance levels established in this study cannot be exceeded. Could you just tell us a little bit about that and what exactly the significance of that is?
Yes, that's obviously on the parent application. The kind of floodlighting that went in was approved, and that was subject to luminance levels, which would be the brightness of those floodlights, and details of that have to be conditioned to ensure that the luminance and the brightness of those floodlights doesn't exceed what is deemed to be acceptable in relation to residential properties. So we would condition that to make sure different bulbs or amendments weren't made to the style of the floodlights.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor. And thank you, Polly. Councillor Whitehead, you've got a question as well.
Yes, following on from that question, are these lights likely to be LED lights and therefore they're going to dip more to create less problems with residents? I always feel nervous about floodlights, as there were 2 examples in my own ward a few years ago where there was a planning application for an extra half an hour and it was said this wouldn't have an impact on the residents, and it did, partly because the wrong sort of lights were used and they weren't LED. And also, in the case of one of these examples, not only did they ask for half an hour, but they then came back a year later and asked for longer than half an hour and asked for an hour extra and longer at the weekend. So can we have assurance that these will be low pollution LED lights, and can we also have some sort of condition that this won't mean extra time is asked in the future for an extra half an hour or an hour again, and increase at weekends as well?
Just to let you know that there'll be no change to the existing bulbs on the floodlights. They will stay as they are existing, so there's no change to those. It's just to allow to have them on for an extra 30 minutes in the darker months of the year. And there will be a condition on there so that the lights can only be used between 3:30 and 9:30 in the evening. If they did want to extend that time, the club would need to come back in with a fresh application, and we would assess any impact on any additional time that they're requesting.
Thank you, Polly. We'll move through the questions, and if people want to come back on anything, they can do. Councillor Allen.
Yes, thank you. A bit confused on the second schedule, page 41. It talks about the floodlights on section 4 not operating outside of the hours 15:30 to 21:30. But in the presentation, you did refer to one of the courts being on until 10 p.m. So is this 10 p.m. going to be reduced back down to 9:30? or are we going to, as Councillor White has said, are we going to get a follow-on request to extend them all up to 10 p.m?
Just to confirm, the hard courts that are to the south of the clubhouse have floodlighting and they have permission to be on till 10 p.m. at night. That's separate to the 3 clay courts that are under consideration now.
Okay, so the 3 clay courts will stay at 9:30 forever. We're not going to see this coming back to this committee in another few months saying, oh, can we now extend this till 10 o'clock in line with the other courts?
If they did come back with an application to extend it till 10 in line with the other courts, then obviously we would make an assessment on that. The hard courts are further away from the residential dwellings, situated to the sort of north and west of the site. So perhaps that's why they haven't come in for an application for 10 o'clock on this application.
Okay.
Thanks, Councillor. And Councillor Foster.
I have a problem on this because I've read about lumens and all those sorts of things, but frankly, if you were to speak to the residents who live in the area, they'd probably be as ignorant of light sensitivity as I am. And it's very difficult to make a judgment on this when all of the photographs shown are of a nice sunny day. I've got no concept as to whether this does create an interference or doesn't create an interference. I am not provided with enough to make any sort of value judgment in comparison to the residents. That's my problem with this.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. We'll take that probably as a comment rather than a question, and then you can come back to that when we get to the debate stage.
Well, have we got any photographs of the nighttime photographs?
Okay, sure. I can ask that. Officers, do we? Mr. Webber wants to come in.
Yeah, thank you, Andy Webber, Head of Planning. Really, in response to Councillor Foster's point there. Yeah, that's kind of understood. I think through you, Chair, I think it's important that we understand that there is no issue with the luminance of the floodlighting, and that's been established by the parent planning application. What members have to decide tonight is whether or not that additional 30 minutes on the 3 clay courts 1 to 3 is something which they find acceptable, given the advice in the officer's report, the comments by regulatory services in terms of the degree of noise that might be experienced by neighbouring properties. Officers feel that that's within acceptable tolerances for the 30 minutes proposed. So, but I think for the purposes of tonight, it's not really revisiting whether or not the luminance of the floodlights in of themselves are an issue, and that's really not what we're here to consider. We're here to consider whether the extension of those floodlighting, the floodlighting hours to those particular courts is acceptable by another 30 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Webber. If that's okay, I'm going to move on to Councillor Garinger now, to ask his question.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I don't have a particular problem with the luminance all the time. We've had these things come up in the past. I remember years ago we had one on the Downslawn Tennis Club in Holland Avenue. My concern is more about the angle and the shading of the lamps. Obviously, the lamps can give out light at a particular angle and prevent light escaping further than the courts. So I mean, I can understand the annoyance of neighbours if the light is shining into their houses, but that can be prevented by angling the lights in a certain way that they don't go beyond the court. So that can be prevented, and so it's not so much the luminance as the fact that people don't want these lights shining to people's homes. So can the lights be angled in such a way as to do that? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. I assume that given Mr. Webber's last response, that because the application is only for an extra half an hour, we can't ask them at 9:30 to re-angle the lights. But just to confirm, I'll get Mr. Webber or Polly to respond to that.
Yes, Councillor Heffernan. Yeah, I mean, it's really a repeat of my my response to Councillor Foster. I think members must assume, for the purposes of their considerations tonight, that the floodlights in of themselves are acceptable as granted by the parent plan application. And your considerations this evening confined to whether the additional 30 minutes is something which you find acceptable or not acceptable in planning terms. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Beck.
Thank you. Actually, this is my ward, so I've actually seen these lights on at night, and they are pretty bright. You know, I know all the technical detail tells us that they're okay. And also the other ones that are there till 10 o'clock at night, if you look at the plan on page 43, they don't actually back onto houses as far as I'm aware, whereas these do. They've got you've got Tilda Close and you've got Denby Close. My question is, when this application came in originally, did the applicant just ask to have the lights there till 9 o'clock, or was it negotiated down, or was that a condition? And why they didn't have the application to go to 9:30 in the first place? Can anybody tell me that?
On the original parent application, the applicants just came in to have it until use the lights until 9 o'clock in the evening. So it wasn't that it was they came in for a longer time and it was negotiated down. It was just to use them until 9, and now they're coming back in with this application to have that amended for an extra 30 minutes until 9:30.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Whitehead, you want to come back in with another question?
Yes. Do I presume from this that the extra half an hour will be for every evening? Is that every evening, Monday to Friday, or Sunday to Saturday? Is it 7 days? Because certainly during the school term, and to go back to these examples from my own ward, when it came up before the planning committee, we were advised it wouldn't have an impact, but it subsequently did have an impact on school children. I know they're not at school at the moment, but they will be going back to school. So we did have parents of school children complaining about the impact on children's sleep at night. The extra half an hour did have an impact. So that would be concern to me. So it sounded from what was being said, this wouldn't be close to back bedrooms, but can we have confirmation this won't be near to back bedrooms and their impact on children's sleep, because the extra half an hour could make a difference?
Polly, do you know the answer to that?
The previous application that showed the spread of the floodlights didn't show it reaching bedroom windows of the surrounding properties. The condition will be sort of like 7 days a week. There isn't a restriction on the certain days that the floodlights can be used. So it is Monday through to Sunday.
Thank you. I don't see any more questions coming in, so I think we should probably move to debate on this item. We've covered some of the issues already. Does anyone who wants to begin us off, maybe Councillor Gowring, I think you came in first, or Councillor Whitehead? Right, so I'll just wait for a few seconds to see if there's anyone saying debate on the chat. Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you, Chair. I kind of feel that the fact that they're there, these applications have gone through. Obviously, it was decided it was okay to have those lights until 9 o'clock. I don't really think that an extra half an hour is going to make that much difference to the surrounding properties. So no, I think an extra half an hour is quite acceptable.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gallagher. Councillor Foster.
I take a slightly contrary view, because we have to remember that the original 1530 and 2100 hours was a condition of planning, and the reason given to safeguard the amenities currently enjoyed by the occupants of adjoining premises and or dwellings. The if we're looking to safeguard those, I'm afraid the only way to safeguard them is to maintain the current timetable. It may or may not, the extra half hour may or may not impact, but in order to safeguard, as the original condition 4 stated, I believe you've got to stay safeguarded and stick to the 2100 hours. That's my view anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. I just want to question one thing that you said there. I might get a response from after this is whether, I mean, obviously it was a condition of 9 p.m, but that was presumably because the application was only until 9 p.m. I don't know if that affects your view overall, but I don't know. I don't think we do need officers on that, actually. I'll move on to the people unless Councillor Foster, you want to come back on that. I would raise anything else.
It doesn't change. It doesn't particularly change my view. It may have been acceptable subject to condition. We know, I mean, if it's condition 4, there was obviously conditions 1, 2, and 3 applied as well. So I shouldn't think they were part of an application. However, that issue of safeguarding and the protection, because it isn't just a matter of the extra half hour, as Councillor Whitehead has said. It's the noise, it's the children, it's and it is the general hubbub created if you've got a child trying to get to sleep, or people on shifts. You know, we live in a different world now, and we have to give these people consideration.
No, thank you. No, that's fair enough. Councillor Allen.
It's just 2 points. The last one, which Councillor Foster raised about the age of children playing at that time of night. Would it be possible to have an age restriction from 9 o'clock till 9:30? And the second point really was, we're coming into the winter months now, when the lights are actually going to be needed more than in the summer. And would it be acceptable to put a condition, if we are minded to accept, that this is reviewed after a 6-month period, which is when we come back out of the winter again? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And if it's okay, I'll get other people to come in, and then we can go back to officers for your 2 questions about conditions. Is that all right?
Yes, that's fine.
Thank you. Councillor Whitehead.
I was also going to suggest a 6-month condition. I also have another concern, and that we're being required to reduce all sorts of pollution, including light pollution. By having these lights on for an extra half an hour, that does create extra problems with pollution, which I don't think solves some of the issues we want to solve. So I would prefer to keep the time limit to 9 o'clock. One, so we don't have problems, as Councillor Foster says, with children trying to sleep and night workers trying to sleep, but also that we are positively trying to reduce light pollution.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Whitehead. Councillor Geiringer, you've got a question.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. I'm just following on my last question about shading. I mean, the answer was, oh, well, we can't do it for just for the extra half hour. I think there should be a condition, quite frankly, that the angles that the lights shine on are done in such a way that they only shine on the courts and nowhere else. Now, why shouldn't that be all the time? I mean, why has the light got to be anywhere except the last half hour? No, surely we should have the lights that just shine on the courts from when the lights go on to start with till when they go off. All it's got to do is get them adjusted to that, and then there will be no light shining in people's bedrooms or anywhere else. The lights will only shine on the courts. And surely that can be done by adjusting the lights. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I mean, I imagine it'll be the same answer as before, that because there's already permission until 9, irrespective of where the lights shine, that it may not be possible. But I'll add it to the list of questions before we move to the vote, if that's okay.
We could add it as a condition. Why not?
Well, like I said, we've got 2 possible questions on conditions at the moment. I'll add yours as a third, and then we can get a response after. But Councillor Shields, and then we'll get feedback, and then we'll move to a vote. Councillor Shields.
Just very quickly, yes, I support the 6-month trial and I look forward to the vote.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I bring in either Polly or Andy on these 3 possible conditions? I imagine, so Councillor Whitehead, I think it was Councillor Whitehead or possibly Councillor Allen raised the age restriction. The next one was a 6-month trial, and then the other was Councillor Geiringer's condition on changing the angles. Are any of those goers as far as conditions are concerned?
Thank you, Chair. Andy Webber, Head of Planning. I'll come in here. I can't reiterate enough that the floodlights are already approved and they're considered acceptable to the council by the parent permission. So there's no conditions that would be reasonable or pass the test of reasonableness that we could consider for adjusting at all the lights. That is assuming that it's accepted that there's an issue with the existing lights, which officers say there is not. I take the point about light pollution and really going back to an earlier question by Councillor Whitehead. There is a question which I couldn't answer for you tonight, and I don't know whether the case officer can, but I know a lot of external lighting is increasingly moving over to LED, and that's mainly because of power consumption, which I think is an issue. But that's something I think we could take away with the and speak to the tennis club. I think sorry, just going through the suggestions. I don't think we can. There wouldn't be an enforceable condition in terms of the ages of people using the courts for that extra 30 minutes. It's unrestricted at the moment. That would be completely unenforceable in my view. However, although the applicant is not here tonight to speak, a condition which is effectively a temporary permission, which will be reviewed after 6 months, I think is something that seems reasonable in the circumstances, noting members' concerns, and there have been a few objections from neighbours immediately adjoining the site. So, Chair, through you, of all the suggestions put forward tonight, I think the 6 month temporary permission, I think, is a reasonable one. And we can monitor that with our colleagues in regulatory services in the light of experience. And in the meantime, we can go back to the tennis club and ask them in terms of the specification of the lights, where that sits and whether or not they are currently LED or whether they might consider moving to LED without any further impact on neighbouring residents. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Before we do this, can I just quickly check with Matthew the procedure on this? Is it someone to move the amendment to the condition and then we take the vote? Or can we just take the vote straight away knowing that this condition's been added? Is Matthew not here?
Sorry, Chair, I just lost my mic for a moment. I only caught the second half of the question. Could you ask again?
Yes, it's just about the procedure for amending a condition. Can we just propose that now and then take the vote? Or do we have to, is there a 2-step process?
No, it's fine to just have the amendment on the condition now and then move to a substantive vote after that. Okay,
thank you. Okay, so, before we do it, really quickly, Councillor Geiringer, you got a question?
Oh, sorry, what's me?
You're muted, Peter.
Okay, yeah, just a quick one. Okay, if we can't get it as a condition, it would do no harm just to ask the club if they might be prepared just to adjust the lamps. I mean, no condition, but they might be happy to do that. That's all. If we don't ask, we don't get. Simple.
Thank you, Peter. As it's not an enforceable condition, I think that's something that possibly, if the ward councillors wish to take up, they might want to. But as for our committee here tonight, I think we're just going to take a vote with the amendment to have this as a 6-month temporary increase. So, Kathy, are you okay to do the roll call on that basis?
Okay. So the vote is to approve planning permission subject to the conditions, subject to the amendment, which is for a 6-month trial. Is somebody able to propose and second that?
I'm happy to propose it.
And I would second it.
Thank you. Okay, so if we move to the vote, if you could vote for, against, or abstain, please, when I call your name. Councillor Eric Allen.
For.
Councillor Kevin Burke.
For.
Councillor Richard Clare.
For.
Councillor Tim Foster.
I'll go for that.
Councillor Vincent Galligan.
For.
Councillor Peter Geringer.
For.
Councillor Tony Shields.
For.
Councillor Jill Whitehead.
For.
Councillor Richard Clifton.